Photosynthesis is often underappreciated, but rest assured, without it, life on Earth would cease to exist. Photosynthetic organisms like plants convert solar energy from the sun into the chemical energy of sugars, also generating oxygen in the process. All animals, including humans, obtain their food by eating plants or by eating animals that originally ate plants. We also obtain the oxygen that we breathe thanks again to photosynthesis. So this should be food and oxygen for thought the next time you walk by a plant. Organisms can be classified based on how they obtain energy. Autotrophs, translated as self-feeders, feed themselves by producing their own organic molecules through photosynthesis, while heterotrophs, translated as fed by others, have to consume pre-existing organic molecules originally produced by the autotrophs. It's important to realize that while autotrophs undergo photosynthesis, both auto and heterotrophs use cellular respiration. This is the oxidation or breakdown of organic molecules to extract energy from the chemical bonds found in food, as discussed greater in Unit 6. The energy stored in carbohydrate molecules from photosynthesis passes through the food chain. The predator that eats these deer receives a portion of the energy that originated in the photosynthetic vegetation that the deer consumed. Photosynthesis consists of chemical reactions that convert solar energy from the sun into the chemical energy of glucose. Therefore, the overall chemical reaction for photosynthesis is as follows. Light energy is used to provide energy to build the glucose. However, the raw materials needed to provide the atoms found in a glucose molecule come from carbon dioxide gas from the air and water from rainfall. During the process of photosynthesis, oxygen is also generated. Photosynthesis is performed by plants, some algae, and some bacteria. Keep in mind once again that photosynthesis is absolutely essential to life on Earth by providing nutrients and oxygen for all living organisms. Photosynthesis uses the solar energy from sunlight along with carbon dioxide and water to produce sugars. Oxygen is also generated as a product of photosynthesis. While this tree will use some of the oxygen, excess oxygen is given off into the atmosphere for us to breathe. The basic equation for photosynthesis is deceptively simple. In reality, the process takes place in many steps involving intermediate reactants and products. Glucose, the primary energy source in cells, is made from smaller sugars that are made first. Photosynthesis converts visible light emitted from the sun into glucose. Visible light is part of the overall larger electromagnetic spectrum, which is the range of possible frequencies of radiation found on Earth. Chloroplasts contain pigments that absorb different wavelengths of light. Two of the main photosynthetic pigments are chlorophyll A and chlorophyll B, which absorb the visible light rays violet, blue, orange, and red, but reflect green. We detect colors according to the light rays that are reflected back to our eyes, therefore leaves appear green. Visible light is part of the larger electromagnetic spectrum. This radiation exists at different wavelengths, each of which has its own characteristic energy. All electromagnetic radiation, including visible light, is characterized by its wavelength. Here we see what is meant by wavelength. Waves have a crest, which is the peak, and a trough, which is the valley. The wavelength of a single wave is the distance between two consecutive points of similar position, two crests or two troughs along the wave. The colors of visible light do not carry the same amount of energy. Violet has the shortest wavelength and carries the most energy, whereas red has the longest wavelength and carries the least amount of energy. The shorter the wavelength, the higher the level of energy. Chloroplasts contain other accessory pigments to help them absorb even more light rays. One set of accessory pigments are carotenoids, which absorb violet, blue, and green light, but reflect yellow and orange. We all know that in the autumn, when leaves begin to die, turn brown, and fall off for the winter, they change colors. This happens because when the leaves begin to die, the chlorophyll breaks down first, revealing the yellow or orange colors of the carotenoids. Chlorophyll is present much more abundantly than the accessory pigments. Therefore, as long as chlorophyll is present, their green color masks the color of the other pigments. But when chlorophyll breaks down first, the other colors are visible for a small moment in time. Chlorophyll A, chlorophyll B, and beta-carotene, which is a carotenoid, are pigments found in the chloroplast. Chlorophyll A and B, which are identical except for the part indicated in the red box, are responsible for the green color of leaves. Beta-carotene is responsible for the orange color of leaves in autumn, as well as in vegetables such as carrots. Each pigment has a unique absorption spectrum, referring to the wavelengths of light that it absorbs. Since photosynthesis takes place within chloroplasts and leaves, their structure is well suited for the process. First of all, they are thin, meaning only a few cells thick, to ensure that sunlight can penetrate every cell within the leaf. Leaves are also flat, meaning spread out, to expose a large surface area to the sun. Within the leaves there are pores or openings called stomata that open up to take in carbon dioxide from the air and to release oxygen back into the air. There's also a layer of cells called mesophyll cells in which photosynthesis takes place. Finally, there are veins that carry water to the mesophyll cells and carry glucose away from those cells to the rest of the plant. A leaf has an upper and lower epidermis, which are the outer layers of cells. This is analogous to your outer layer of skin cells, which is also called the epidermis. The mesophyll cells in the middle contain chloroplasts where photosynthesis takes place. The veins carry water to the mesophyll cells and glucose away. The stoma is one of the pores that allow carbon dioxide to enter and oxygen to exit. Chloroplasts are organelles within mesophyll cells where photosynthesis takes place. Different reactions of photosynthesis take place within different areas of the chloroplast. Therefore, we are going to discuss chloroplast anatomy. Chloroplasts are surrounded by a double outer membrane or two membranes. Filling the inside of a chloroplast is stroma, which is a gel-like fluid. Suspended in the stroma are several grana, which are stacks of disc-shaped membranes called thylakoids. Each thylakoid contains thousands of photosystems. Photosystems contain a high concentration of what's called antenna pigments to absorb light energy, and they ultimately transfer that energy to the reaction center pigment, which is a chlorophyll A molecule. Photosynthesis takes place in chloroplasts, which have an outer membrane and an inner membrane. Filling the chloroplast is stroma, which is an aqueous or water-based fluid. Stacks of thylakoids called grana are suspended within the stroma. A photosystem consists of antenna pigments, which are also called a light harvesting complex, and a reaction center embedded in the thylakoid membrane. The lumen refers to the inside of the thylakoid. Pigments in the light harvesting complex pass light energy to a special chlorophyll A molecule in the reaction center. We will learn more regarding the details of this figure in the next part of this lecture.